stay in Lagos. You have businesses there as well. That's the same Lagos that the APC in general claims that its presidential candidate helped to rebuild. Do you attest to this? And how does he compare in terms of the developmental strides in Lagos with your candidate, Atiku Abubakar?
Well, the thing is that I have known Bola Tinubu for a very long period of time. You're right. I have tremendous respect for him. It is also true that on our own watch, while we were in Lagos growing up as young people, when I was running FSB International Bank, he had accumulated a huge pool of talent in order to help him run Lagos. There is no question that he's done his own bit in order to, develop Lagos into what it is. Others have come after him and done the same thing and created the bandwagon for others to emulate. Now, that's a microcosm. You're dealing with the state. Running a federal setup is something completely different. I'm not aware that he's actually ever had any stint of experience at the federal level, so I cannot even speak to that kind of experience. But my own job, both in this interview and outside, is to vigorously defend the candidature of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar over and above anybody else.
So they do not compare in terms of development?
I've just given you the backgrounds of the two people. You can make your own call from there.
The excitements that the Atiku or Kowa ticket is weak. And they allude just to not just the crisis within the party, but of course, the unprecedented support that Peter Obi is gathering. And they say that that kind of support would have ordinarily been attached to Atiku if they had worked together. Does this trouble you as well?
I'm a student of science, so I don't know what evidence people are citing to say that Peter Obi's candidate is going to hurt Atiku more than Bola Tinubu. I don't know where those kind of hypotheses is coming from. If I'm better enlightened, I can then make a commentary on that particular assertion. I've heard it out there.
So can I give you an analysis of what they say?
Okay, give me an analysis.
So they compare the 2019 elections to what could possibly happen in 2023. And they say that Obi and Atiku together polled 11 million votes plus, most of it from the South. And if you look at the South as it is right now, there are concerns within the party as to if the PDP can indeed win the South, considering the numbers that we see coming out of the Labour Party. So are you dismissing some of these million march rallies that you see as nothing and believing that it has no effect on the candidacy of Atiku Abubakar, especially in the South?
So let me first of all say that President Buhari is not on the ballot. He was a cult figure. And therefore, a lot of the people who voted in the North voted for him. There's now a vacuum. It is Atiku's to lose that. I can guarantee you that.
Especially in the North.
Especially in the North. So that's point number one. Point number two, the youth is a demographic, a particular demographic. One has to go back in time to see what percentage of the youth, even in America, actually enthused to turn out on election day. Number three, I do not know how much work Peter Obi has done or will do in order to appeal to northern sentiments. I really do not know, because it's still a long campaign season. But what I can tell you is that the PDP is not going to leave any part of northern Nigeria unturned. PDP is very strong in the South-South. It will get a bit of the Southwest votes, I guarantee you that. In the Southeast, it will run very, very strong. Because information that is available to me, which I've studied very, very carefully, indicates that there is no one particular person who is so strong that they are going to get anywhere even near 60% of the vote in the Southeast. So I think by the time the PDP is able to organize itself during this campaign and does what is right, I fundamentally believe that Atiku is going to be voted into power in February of 2023.
So it's dependent on if the PDP can get itself right ahead of
during the campaign, not during the campaign itself. This thing is going to fizzle out one way or the other.
What will fizzle out?
The so-called controversy that you people are actually feverishly.
Do you also feel that the Obi hype will die, just like most of your people in the PDP have said?
Well, I don't make those kind of statements. Like I said, I like working with numbers. I'm an economist by training. I really haven't looked at the numbers truthfully. But by the time the campaign starts and we begin to see polling, and I begin to talk to enlightened people, both internationally and here, we would begin to have a feel as to what the popularity of Peter Obi would be. But in the meantime, we're not scared at all. My own view is that once you get into, there are only two, really, at this point in time, two parties, APC and PDP. The chips are going to fall
either way.
In one of these two places. There's absolutely no doubt in my own mind. Barack Obama, at the time he went into the presidency, went into an established party. Look at every presidential candidate in the US who decided to be an independent or create a small party. The best of them was Ross Perot during George H.W. Bush's second term bid. He walked away with 19% of the popular vote, but as a billionaire, he spent over $300 million on the media. So the conventional wisdom is that if someone like Peter Obi had a 10 to 15-year project to create a magnificent machine that is robust, that has structures and everything, over a period of 7 to 10 years, then he can become a huge factor to be reckoned with. That's the view that I personally hold. I could be completely wrong. He might prove me wrong. I do not know. But in a developing country such as ours, with all of the emotions that are wrapped into this society, with all of the controversy and the deep-seated divisions and all these things by the time you get them together, and the lack of education, and the hunger, and the deprivation, and the poverty and disease, I would want to wait to see such a miracle happen in this election season.
When you say that if he had the structure, we've heard this term used repeatedly. Established politicians, the PDP, the APC, have repeatedly said he does not have the structure. So I think it would be fair if you could explain to us what a political party structure means for an individual who wants to win a presidential election.
Okay, so my own experience suggests to me that, number one, yes, politics is the art of the possible. But politics is also the art of highly experienced party whigs who have been deep-rooted over an extended period of time within their political parties, having established network of relationships. It's like banking. In banking, we rise or fall based on the kind of customers that we have. A customer defines the survival of a bank. And therefore, I will find it very hard to believe that Bank A, that has had a long-standing relationship with the customer for over a period of 20 or 25 years, and so much has actually gone back and forth between them, where the loyalties are very, very strong and deeply embedded, that such a customer overnight will just walk away from that bank and say, I'm closing my account and going somewhere else. It's pretty difficult. Politicians, I guarantee you, do far more than what a banker could ever do. They have an intricate network of matrix of relationships going down to the polling units that is established and sustained over a long period of time. They sustain them through a variety of means. You have to get in to actually know what I'm talking about. So when we say structure, it's not just the physical structures, but the blood that flows through the veins of human beings that builds a binding relationship between the voter and the various candidates says a lot. Apart from that, there are all kinds of techniques that politicians are also very familiar with. I'm not talking about rigging, no, but all kinds of techniques that they have in their arsenal that they get to deploy throughout the campaign period. So that's what I mean. And I'm being fair even to myself, that if I had actually decided to go it alone, or by getting into a small party, I wouldn't perhaps be sitting down here talking to you. Politics is different because we've seen a lot of electoral reform. Results are going to be transmitted automatically to INEC. The capacity for people to actually manipulate elections or rig the elections at the polling booth is significantly curtailed at this point in time, if at all it is possible. What is actually more important is for INEC to actually rise up to the occasion and enforce the laws. INEC itself has blown the whistle the other day that people are trying to hack into the server. Now that, I think, is the elephant in the room that needs to be taken care of. And I'm absolutely certain, I have supreme confidence in the ability of INEC to continue to monitor and evaluate this and to stop it in its tracks, whoever is attempting to do that at any level of our elections. So I think we're getting there. Progress is slow, but we're going to get there. But what is even far more important to me is for young men and women, and even the adults and the elderly people, to actually take a much greater interest in their civic duties, to ensure that they are able to provide significant inputs into platforms in terms of what are the issues that people are going to address when they actually get into office. Secondly, is to get them to actually go out there and vote their conscience, to get the right people in. And number three, while they are governing, that for me is even far more important, to come up with a modus operandi for ensuring that people are actively participating in the political and governance process to hold people accountable, and let not a governor or a president or a vice president load it over them.